Transgender issues. These are important issues that I'm going to talk about in this video and what this video is going to be about. My name is Aryan I. I'm a transgender male. My pronouns are he, him, his. Let's get to it. Before we talk about transgender issues, I'm going to talk about my backstory. So about 2.5 years ago, I came out as transgender. Previously, before that time, I did not know that I was trans, so I thought maybe I was just gay. You know, I think a lot of trans guys go through this, this thing where, you know, well, the only thing you can be is gay, since all I knew was sexuality and the gender that I've, grown up with were always like cis, and I wasn't cisgendered. So I thought, well, in order to be male, you only have to be cisgendered, like most people would think. But I really started to research, and I found out what transgender was, and I was like, this is who I am. And that was hard. It was hard for me to admit it to myself, first off. I think that's the hardest part. To admit it to yourself and then tell other people. And it's easier to be accepted as gay rather than trans. Because when you're trans, you're asking people to accept you with this new identity, with this identity that you've always identified as, but now you have a name for it, right? And most trans people change their names and their pronouns, and that's hard. It is. Most importantly, it's hard for us, because if someone doesn't even put forth effort to even try, it makes us feel invalidated, and that really hurts. To not be listened to because people don't understand. Just like, it's like, for a person who doesn't understand, you're trying the best you can to make them understand with your experiences and all your background knowledge on it. But most people won't listen, because if they don't understand, which is the majority of people who aren't trans, if they don't understand, they don't care. If they're not a part of it, they don't care. And that hurts people like me, minorities, you know, trans people, minorities amongst race, disabled people, you know, people, you know, who have different experiences that most can't identify with or relate to. So, yeah. For me, it's still hard, but it takes time. I mean, I never thought that my grandmother, my step-grandmother would, like, ever, you know, support me. Because for the years that I've known her, she wasn't very supportive because she didn't understand. But then over time, she started to understand, and I think that was about 8 months ago, and I'm really thankful for that. I mean, I love my family, and validation for a trans person is very important, because not only are we trying to find ourselves, we are trying to, you know, go through life. I mean, life's already hard as it is, and to add other stuff on it, it's not easy. But if you're trans and you're like, no one's ever going to support me, I promise me, it takes time. 2.5 years, I waited, you know. So, I mean, just give people time. You just gotta keep going through life, even though it's hard. And most importantly, do you. Like, literally do you. If somebody doesn't understand yet, that's fine. Let them do their thing. But don't ever let them, you know, knock you down, because transgender people are real. And also about the bathroom thing, for me, my personal experience with bathrooms is I use the men's, not the males. I guess that's the right thing to say. I don't know. I use the men's bathroom, and I feel comfortable with it. As a trans guy, if I were to use the female's bathroom, it'd be really hard. First off, there are some problems with both bathrooms for me. When I walk into the men's bathroom, I always have this fear and I have anxiety when I walk in there that someone's gonna hurt me. Someone's gonna try to fight me or have some type of controversial argument with me. And I don't want that. All I want to do is just go in and pee. You know? Thank God most guys aren't, you know, they don't really care. They don't really care. They don't really know. They just go in there and do their business, and that's all transgender people are trying to do in the first place. Now that part scares me. But to walk into the woman's bathroom, it makes me feel invalidated. And a person who would listen to some of my issues with the men's bathroom, they'd probably be like, why don't you just go to the girls? It's like, that, first off, that would invalidate me, make me feel uncomfortable. And I could also possibly, get a confrontation or a fight, because, I don't really pass as female anyway. I think I pass very well. And not a lot of transgender people do. If you listen to anything from the first videos, you're probably kind of confused. What does transgender mean? What does cisgender mean? First off, transgender means you were assigned something at birth and later on identify as something different, something that you've always identified as. Cisgender is when you were assigned something at birth and you still identify as what you were assigned at birth. So, yes. Also, if I say something that is like pre-T, I'm talking about pre-testosterone. Or if I say pre-op, I'm talking about pre-operation, pre-surgery. So, yes. Things not to call a transgender person. Do not call us trannies. Do not call us transvestites. Do not call us cross-dressers or any negative thing. Even if you don't believe that transgender people exist, whatever, that's your belief. All I'm saying is that be respectful about it, and there won't be, a problem or a controversial argument. So, that's all I can say, just be respectful. There is a lot of misconceptions about being transgender. 1. Most people believe that if you are transgender, you have to follow the certain gender roles and guidelines of being a man or a female in order to fit in, which is stupid. But you gotta understand that a lot of people who are transgender are on the spectrum, just like a lot of people have individual likes and dislikes. It's kind of like that. Just because you're transgender doesn't mean that we're all the same and we should all be put in a box, because that's what media likes to portray. They usually portray most trans men as very masculine in order to be valid. Or you see a lot of trans women who are very feminine in order to be valid. So, gender roles don't make you transgender or trans or even more trans than the next person. It just makes you a different individual. The second misconception about being trans, is that we all medically transition. That is not true at all. Some transgender people can't medically transition, whether that is with hormones, whether that is surgery. Some people do want surgery and some people don't. Some people want top surgery and hormones, or some people don't want anything to do with either one. Some people want bottom surgery. Some people only want hormone replacement therapy. Third misconception. Transgender is an umbrella term. It's not just people who are trans men and trans women. There are transgender people who are non-binary, who are agender, who identify outside of their assigned gender at birth. So transgender is basically an umbrella term. Not all trans people are either trans men, trans women. There's people who are trans-masculine, but still non-binary. It's basically just identifying as something different than you were assigned at birth. So, yeah. Alright, this is my friend Kato. Their pronouns are they, them, and he, him. Now, I'm gonna ask him about some trans-related questions, trans issues. So, what are some misconceptions about being transgender?
One misconception is that you have to go directly opposite from the gender assigned to you at birth. So, like, if you're identifying as a male, you have to come directly from female, and that's just not how it is.
Yeah, that's true. Um, what do you think about like the medical transition of trans people?
You don't have to go through a medical transition. Like, it's not
Yeah.
necessary. You can do it if you want, and like, you're just as valid if you don't want to do it.
Yeah, because most people believe that if you're transgender, that you have to prove it, or what makes you transgender is the medical transition, which is incompletely correct. Like, if you are trans, not most, well, I guess, I don't know, some trans people can take the medical procedures and some don't want to. It kind of varies. Everybody's individually different.
And you can take it as far as you want. Like, you don't have to have top or bottom surgery, or you can just have top surgery, or you can just be on like T or estrogen. It doesn't. There's no like place where you need to be.
Yeah. What do you feel about? How do you feel about the bathroom issue?
Yeah. Well, we definitely need to bring some attention to that because as a trans male, I actually feel more like safe going in the women's bathroom because I just know that there's not going to be any conflict. But like, that's just me. Like, I can't go into the male bathroom because I don't feel comfortable. But like, there are some people who want to go into the male bathroom.
Yeah, I feel comfortable going into the male's bathroom. I guess I pass more than others, but if I were to walk into the females, I know I would get weird looks, and I know that I would just feel invalid for me personally that in order to be to go into the women's bathroom, I have to be comfortable with it, but I'm not. There's some trans guys who are, and there's some trans guys who aren't. But at the end of the day, I think there should be no gender bathrooms, in my opinion. I feel like we should just have one stall each, maybe like five one stalls, right, with no gender on it. And then I feel like it would be better because all trans people can actually be themselves. They won't have to actually cover up or wear a hoodie when they walk into a bathroom that they're trying to identify with, you know, and I don't think there would be very many problems. So what do you think about that?
I mean, I think that's a good solution because there's also like trans people who are non-binary.
Yeah.
And they have no bathroom because they're not binary, so they don't fit into a gender to go into a bathroom. And it's just kind of, they don't feel like they place anywhere.
Yeah.
So we definitely need to like get somewhere where they can go and everyone can go.
Yep. We're going to talk about the locker room issues. It's kind of similar to the bathroom issue, but I feel as though if we just didn't have gender locker rooms, I'm pretty sure everybody would be fine with that. Like, I think it'd be okay if everybody had like an individual locker room space instead of saying all female and all male, because not everybody can fit into that and not everybody feels comfortable with that. Me as a pre-T trans guy, in school they would tell me that I would have to go to the females locker room, and I would not do that. Number one, because it makes me feel invalid, like I just don't exist. Second, it makes me feel it just makes me feel crappy. It's like I'm just trying to be myself. You know what I'm saying? I'm not trying to cause harm. All I'm trying to do is change out, go to pee. It's okay if you don't want to change everything. Like, you can have male and female, but also have that in between bathroom for trans people and for non-binary people, which is trans is an umbrella term, but for anybody.
Also, like, they can't say that people just don't feel uncomfortable because I've been in the female bathroom and I've seen girls go change in stalls because they're just not comfortable changing in front of other girls or people who are in that locker room. So it's not just trans people who don't feel comfortable changing in front of everyone.
Yeah.
It's like, it's just depends on the person. And like,
I feel like that's important. I feel like I even guys don't even want to dress in front of anybody. The locker room issue, it's more beyond than trans people. It's kind of like everybody. So why not at least change that part? Maybe it might have more of a cost effect, but I think in the long run it will make everybody else happy. I mean, you can look at how many fights that happen in locker rooms, or a lot of bullying goes on in locker rooms. I mean, if it's all separate and everyone has their own little space to change out, and you have 20 of those separate little spaces that isn't in the gender bathroom at all. There's no separation. There's just little individual rooms. I feel like it would work out personally. So yeah,
I agree.
boom. Trans people only take the medical, and we never talk about the social transition, right? Most people believe that after the medical transition, then that's when you start the social, but in fact, it's different. The social transition of a trans person is when they come out, basically, and they say, like, for me, let me give you my backstory. About 2.5 years ago, I came out as trans, trans male, and I identified as male. My pronouns were he, him, his. Sir, dad. I hope not to be that soon because that's nasty, but it is. But that's basically a social transition, whether that's just to friends or just to you or family. So what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I'm not completely out, but I mean,
Yeah.
I'm out to most people.
Mhm.
So I think that it's never like a thing that like after the medication you can be called sir.
Yeah.
It's more of you can do the medication because you wish to be called sir. Like you have acknowledged the fact that you are no longer she, her, and like you recognize and tell everyone, or not everyone, but people you're comfortable with, that you are he, him. So, I mean, I've never met someone who has come out and not wanted their pronouns to be the pronouns that they identify as.
Yeah. Yeah. Um. Oh, yeah. It's the social transition is the hardest part, especially when you're preteen. And I think most trans people who don't really come out yet until the medical procedure, at least to family, I think it's the hardest to believe. It's like there's people in the world who believe, you know what, you're not a man till you take the surgery, or you get bottom surgery, or you're at least on hormones. It's like you have to continuously prove yourself, and the social transition is the hardest part because not everybody is going to validate you, and if you don't have validation, it's hard, and then you just start doubting yourself. Most people who are invalidated usually suffer from a lot of depression. I mean, from some friends I've heard. I mean, I'm not going to give you a statistic. I might slip that in later and talk about that, but I know a lot of people who feel invalidated. They start feeling like they don't exist, and they start feeling really sad, and then over time it turns into depression and anxiety for people who don't understand.
Definitely anxiety.
Yeah.
Because, like, I always have the second thought because I've been invalidated so much that when I meet new people, I have to tell them she, her, because I don't want them to be like, oh, well, never mind. I don't want to speak to you because you are this way. So I always get that second thought of you should have said she, her.
Yeah, it's not fair, and
It's
it's
definitely not.
it's really mean. I mean, if you know how hard it is to come out to somebody and tell somebody to ask you to call, to at least try. That's all we're asking, is to try to give our new name, our real name, a try, and our pronouns that identify with who we actually are. It is very hard. So for people just to be like, no, you don't exist,
It's like that's not what you are.
yeah, it's really hurtful. and it's not true because transgender people do exist. A lot of people would like to make the claim that being transgender is a mental illness, but it isn't. First off, let's read what the definition of what a mental illness is. Mental illness refers to a wide range of mental health conditions, disorders that affect your mood, thinking, and behavior. Examples of mental illness include depression, anxiety disorders, schizophrenia, eating disorders, and addictive behaviors. Now we're gonna read American Psychological Association, what they have to say about it. So it says, is being transgender a mental illness or a mental disorder? A psychological state is considered a mental disorder only if it causes significant distress or disability. Many transgender people do not experience their gender as distressing or disabling, which implies that identifying as transgender does not constitute a mental disorder. So basically what that is saying is we aren't mentally we don't have a mental disorder because we aren't distressed because we are transgender. We're more so distressed because of the negative environment that we are in, or someone saying something negative to us about our identity and who we are. So it's not because we are transgender, it's because of the negative environment that we are in and being around the negative people that get into our heads saying these negative things. But I'm going to go on and say a little bit more on this. It says, for these individuals, the significant problem is finding affordable resources such as counseling, hormone therapy, medical procedures, and the social support necessary to freely express their gender identity and minimize discrimination. Many other obstacles may lead to distress, including a lack of acceptance within society, direct or indirect experiences with discrimination or assault. These experiences may lead many transgender people to suffer with anxiety, depression, or related disorders at higher rates than non-transgender persons. So that's basically what I just said. The negative environment causes anxiety, depression, and other disorders because due to the negative environment. But it's not because we are transgender. It's because of the negative environment and negative people that are around us.
Monsters stuck in your head. Monsters under your bed. We are monsters. Oh, we are monsters. Oh.